Yo, what up, folks? This is Rodney Farrell, the CEO of Farrell Development Group, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by E.I.T.H.R. Let's get it.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
Hey, how you doing? I want to say happy Monday to everybody out there in podcast land. It's your big homie, D-Cal, broadcasting live from the GNS Inc. HQ here in gorgeous Northern California. I want to say thank you to everybody listening across the country, across the city, across the state, across the globe. It means a lot, man. Appreciate that. You could be anywhere else in the world. I'm happy that you're here, and I appreciate that. Listen, today's topic is going to be some interesting stuff when it comes to family and people and friends. I had a nice little chit chat with somebody really close to me about some things, and I'm going to bring it to you guys. And you're more than welcome to participate in that. And how you can participate is really simple. What you can do is go to Spreaker, Spreaker, download the application, create yourself a profile, and you can chat along with us here live while I'm broadcasting. You can also go to the social media page of the E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you're more than welcome to comment on the post that we do. We generally like to post the subject matter that we're going to be discussing on the podcast, so you can go in and comment. On Twitter, you're more than welcome to DM anything you would like for me to speak about specifically. You can also do that with the chat as well. Episode number 38. If you want to check out the previous 37 episodes, you can just go to the parent company of E.I.T.H.R Inc. on YouTube. Subscribe to our page, and that way you can keep tabs of the library of podcasting that we've done so far. This past weekend, we created something a little bit brand new. And if you were here for it on Sunday night, you are aware of it. But if not, we created a little extra branch for the podcast and the platform. And this is basically what it sounds like.
GNS Entertainment would like to welcome you to Club Do You.
So Club Do You, if you weren't aware, is pretty much where I put music that GNS Entertainment has produced, instrumentals that we've created. Also for artists, that want to do an open mic or their singing abilities, and it gives a platform for them to be able to, get to people that they don't have in touch with. Something that I learned growing up in the Bay Area, a lot of artists, what they would do is if they're trying to get on, they would put some of the other hustlers that they know trying to get into the game. So even though we're all competing with one another, we're also helping one another. Because my philosophy is really simple. If I eat, we all fall. Now, there's a lot of people who are uniquely different in their way of thinking, where they want you to help them get put on. But when it comes to putting you on, and we kind of talked about this in the past, is if you're doing this to help people so you can get some get back and they return the favor, you're probably in the wrong business. That's definitely the wrong mindset. You want to make sure that you help the right people, but you also want to make sure that you don't spin your wheels on something that's not going to work for you in the long run. So don't expect to get anything in return. Do it out of the kindness of your heart. So that way you don't have an expectation and you'll never be heartbroken, if that makes sense. So the GNS Entertainment branch is going to be doing this over the weekend. We don't know if it's going to be Saturday nights, or Sunday nights. Still kind of testing it out. Anyway, podcast, we'd like to throw it off with some shout out. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody who made it through the weekend, man. I mean, it was not too hot, right? It was not too scorching. This week's going to be a little bit different, though. I'll tell you that right now. This week's going to be a little bit on the toastier side. So I hope you stay hydrated. Words of encouragement to people, because we like to do a motivation, inspirational session as well to start the podcast off, is don't tell all your good news to people who love to create bad situations. Because there's some people, they don't want to see you build, they just want to see you burn. Misery loves company. So you got to learn when to leave those motherfuckers alone. Simple as that. It's a very, very fine line. I've said this before. That fine line of just enough or a little too much. You're never really going to understand which one it is until you decide to finally see the result of where you're at. Right? So, protect your peace, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to get into the subject matter of one of the things we're going to talk about in the E.I.T.H.R podcast on the other side of this drop. Be right back.
Hey, this is Marissa, straight out of Sacramento, California, and I listen to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with the lovely Decal. Go get 'em, Slugger.
So the phone call that I had earlier with a loved one brought up a very, very, very valid point that I would like to address with some people. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you guys this question. And the question is really, really simple. Have you ever had somebody where they've created a problem, they've created an issue, and you had to do what you needed to do to correct that problem, to correct that issue? And in the middle of that, other people looked at that person that created the drama and gave that person unnecessary praise. Does that kind of make sense? So I'll make up a scenario. Let's say there's a relative, and within this relative, they decide to run up electricity bill or water bill because they're staying with you, they're living with you, and they're not contributing to any of the food. Matter of fact, the food that they have in their home, in your home, they not only eat and don't put back, but they also feed their friends and other people said food that is meant for you and this other person, right? It could be a roommate. Like I said, it could be a relative. And in the midst of all that, people tend to take their side by telling you, you need to buy more food. You need to stop allowing them to take from the house where it's putting everyone else out and where everyone else is now starving. Right? It's kind of a really bad situation. So this person in particular was giving me a call because this person has children. And the children, whenever they speak about one of the adults in the situation. This particular adult gets all the praise. This particular adult can do no wrong. This particular adult is the hero of the scenario. Adult number 2 is the one who had to clean up all the messes adult number 1 has made. I don't want to say any names because, in case people are listening, I don't want to cause any friction, but there's several different scenarios and cases that this can go by, right? You have, a parent or parents, right? Where one parent busts their ass, parent number 2. And the other parent kind of just does whatever the hell they want to do because they feel they can get away with it. Parent number 1 in this example, right? Parent number 1 takes money. Parent number 1 runs up utilities. Parent number 2 takes food. Parent number 1 doesn't contribute to anything with the children when it comes to growing up, when it comes to schooling, when it comes to supplies. Parent number 1 doesn't put any effort into the situation that parent number 2 is doing for them, right? Parent number 1 takes the car for several days at a time, causing parent number 2 to find and catch public transportation with the children. Parent number 1 takes any of the money and spends it on other individuals, and then gets mad at parent number 2 because the children doesn't have any clothing. Parent number 2 goes to different outside resources to get help, but in the situation of that, the children grow up and they glorify parent number 1 because of the image that parent number 1 projects. That's the image that the children and everyone else around wants to celebrate and glorify. But parent number 2 was the one who made all the big things happen with very little resources to make it happen. They were resilient enough to actually get it done. Yet parent number 2 is the one who gets the criticism. They get all the flack. They get very minimal respect when it comes to. Why is that, do you think? What would cause a person to sit back and tell the one person who was making all this happen that they ain't shit, and the one person who's causing all the havoc, they get all the praise? Why is that? I mean, hell, you can go to significant others, right? Side pieces. Hello. You're making sure that this person gets to work, they got food, they have clothing, they can walk. Are you making them dependable on you? I mean, is this one of those situations where, how do you get people to understand that the person that you're giving all this credit to, the person that you are giving all this praise, that you're giving all these accolades, they're the ones who put us in this bad situation? How are you praising them? We're going to crucify me. How can you do that? What makes a person want to do that, though? In addition, like, what makes you feel? Is it a certain lifestyle that you just want to believe? Is it denial? Is it you don't want your image or your belief of this person to be affected? At what point does a person sit back and say, you know what, you might have a point here, because parent number 1 took our car. parent number one did all these things with our car. Parent number one didn't give any money. Matter of fact, parent number one took money from parent number two. And you had to borrow from everybody to make things happen, which puts you in debt with everybody else. And now these kids grow up and look at you like, don't you dare talk about parent number one. Right? You put them on this pedestal. And if anybody else tries to correct the story that you're telling with some truth versus your opinionated perspective about what you fantasize them being like, they lash out. See, the last podcast episode, we kind of talked about domestic violence and how I grew up in a home where domestic violence wasn't too foreign, but it wasn't my father or my mother. It was my mother, physically assaulted my father because in her mind, he was never going to hit her. In the moment that he started to defend himself, that's when she became a victim. In most cases, a lot of those who play the victim want all the praise. And they're very, very manipulative. But in other cases, you have people who are just controlling and they're abusive. And their mindsets isn't necessarily for the betterment of others. Their mindset is for the betterment of themselves. And they get to determine who gets credit, if any, outside of them. I don't think that's a fair trade. I mean, what say you guys? Like I said, parent number one damn sure doesn't deserve any medals. So why are the kids deciding to give this parent any type of credit? Matter of fact, what makes a person not want to hear anything outside of the truth from people who know this person better than they do? Is it the fact that you don't want the memory tarnished? Is it the fact that you don't want anything that you know or you believe or you created to knock this person down in your heart? I mean, don't we do this with politicians? Don't we do this with athletes? Lord knows we do this with significant others all the time. We do. How many of us have actually had friends try to explain to us your partner's doing, and we just refuse to hear it? Why is that? Just curious. What makes you say, I don't want to know the truth? Is the truth really going to hurt you that much? And if the truth is going to hurt you that much, shouldn't that be a warning sign that you might need some help from something? That's just me. Another thing I want to talk about. An uninformed opinion versus an informed opinion. Why do people continue to give their uninformed opinions about things that they eventually wind up not knowing what the fuck they were talking about? Again, I guess this goes into the conversations and whenever you're having a discussion on social media. Have you noticed most people don't read articles? They read the comments section. And this is kind of where they get their quote unquote information from. Isn't that weird? I would think the comment section is the section where people who read the article go and discuss what it was that they read in the article. What has happened, the comment section turns into the expert session. It's the expert session where everybody knows what the hell is going on without reading it because they got what they needed from the heading of the article. And most of us who actually read the article, we're ignored. We kind of looked at like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Despite me reading the article, for whatever reason, people still choose to ignore that. I think it's kind of funny. I was just kind of curious if anybody else kind of experienced that themselves. You know, that's a rhetorical question because we all have, right? It's kind of funny how people would believe uninformed opinion over an informed opinion. And then when you have the nerve, the gall to ignore this conversation, people take that as a victory. You know what? Let them have it. They can have that victory because it's not worth the peace of mind. But I think it is interesting how, in addition, this is how people learn without reading the article. I've discovered that. What people will do is they'll argue with you to get you to tell them more information that they'll later on use in a different conversation. Because instead of admitting that they're wrong, they would die on the hill that they're standing on, switch subject to piss you off, then once you leave, take note of what it was that you said, steal your information and knowledge that you provided to them, and then turn around and use it in another conversation as if they're the expert now. It's interesting. I feel like I've had this conversation before, and it's still a situation to where, you know what, it's still one of these. Still an elephant in the room. Like, why do people do that? I guess this is how some people just make friends, man. They just make friends this way. And here's a topic that I put on social media on the Twitter account. And this really got into some nice conversations, not only on the thread, but in my DM from people. And this is from the Twitter account at the E.I.T.H.R. Seriously, why do people ignore the advice, guidance given to them by those who are living the way they wish they were? Why do we do that? Right? And then one particular person, the name is Cyber Warrior Street 1 or Cyber Warrior ST1. This person says that's actually a really good question. Some of it, I think, comes down to discipline. Although they listen and take the advice, it's the lack of discipline that keeps them from following through. And I kind of agree with that. He goes on to say also, other times I think, depending on who it comes from, it's they think it's bad advice. Right? So basically, people would take your advice that you give them and they won't do anything with the advice that you gave them. Mainly because they know they don't have the discipline to follow through with what it was you said they should do. And that makes sense, right? It's like in relationships, when you give a suggestion of what a person should do, you know, for that relationship. Nah, man, what you need to do is you need to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. And if that doesn't happen, you know, then you have your sign. Lord knows I've been given advice plenty of times by people, but I won't take it because I don't have the discipline to do it. And I think what happens in this particular situation, we do not take the advice because we are afraid of the outcome. We are afraid of facing the truth that we claim we're searching for. Right? Not only that, but maybe in addition, some people, they just won't apply it. You know, it's usually because they don't really want the answer that bad. They don't care. They're curious, but they, whatever. It's whatever. But my thing is, why are you asking for advice? Right? Someone once said to me, if you're starting a business or you're interested in starting a business, take business advice from successful business people. Everything else from your family and friends. If you're taking fitness advice, take advice from people who ultimately have the shape, the size, the frame, the outcome you do. Travel the journey you have, or was once where you are and now where you want to be, versus taking the advice of somebody who's not doing the advice themselves. Right? How many of us have that single friend that wants to give relationship advice? Okay, well, where's your woman at? Oh man, these hoes. I don't. I have a woman though. So how do I make my woman happy? Oh man, shit. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't. That's the person I wouldn't take advice from. Why? For the most part, they don't know how to make a woman happy, hence them not having one. Now, there's a flip side to that coin. Do they choose to stay single because of? Are they single because they keep running into bad people? There's always going to be reasons of why someone didn't do something. Because again, there's never going to be a broad stroke of a brush of why, but why don't we take advice from people who have what it is that we want and apply that advice? Someone else once said, this person, I want to get their name right, so please excuse me. Fan Theory Q's on Twitter. Because it would take them out of their comfort zone. Now, there's some people who just won't take your advice because, honestly, truly, really, you give them a solution to the problem in which they really don't want to care about. Because there's some people out there, believe it or not, they don't want to solve the problem, because if you solve the problem, you take away what it is that I have to complain about. You take away my problem. And there's some people out there, ladies and gentlemen, they need something to bitch about. Their day is just miserable without having something to complain about. And if you give some people nothing to complain about, they're going to complain about that. Interesting how that works out, right? If you have nothing to complain about, that's what you'll complain about. I don't know. That's just some people. So it's interesting. I kind of want to talk about a dream that I had last night. A very, very interesting dream. Most dreams people claim not to remember. This one was very, very odd in the way my brain works, if anyone knows. Hi, this is Decal, and I like to make movie references from time to time. Or I may take you on a tangent, but I'm going to bring you right back where we started, so that way you recognize how we got back here. But you're not going to understand the journey unless you pay attention. So the dream that I had last night, I do not remember exactly how it started. But I want to say it was something to the effect of like a street fight, and I got killed in the street fight. And I don't know why, but I was looking at it from a third party perspective. And as I'm looking at this from the third party perspective, they're getting ready to do the operation, whatever, what have you. And the next thing I know from this dream it went from me dying to me being resurrected. It was almost like they didn't do the Y incision, but they kind of put me like in a cryo status, right? And with that, I don't want to say zombie, but it was kind of zombie-esque, right? Where your brain functions only so much because obviously it's been without oxygen for so long, and they did whatever the hell it was that they did to put whatever in your brain, because I think it's Neuralink is working on something where they can implant memories in this chip that they surgically put in your skull. So sometimes the memories that you're going to have in the future may not be memories of yours at all. So it's kind of like a cross between Civil War and Total Recall, right? So as I'm going through trying to remember how I got to where I got to in this dream, I'm in this laboratory, and the next thing I know,
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, Decal.
so the next thing I know, I'm sitting in this chair, and I'm trying to move, but I can't because rigor mortis and all this other fun stuff, muscles are atrophied, and I can't move, but I'm being talked to. And it's like I want to escape, but I can't escape because I don't have full function of my body. I can barely move. I can barely stand. One arm is working. The other arm, I'm trying to get some feeling into it, so I'm able to get some motion, some range, so I can do something. And they're moving me, and they're readjusting me, and they're resetting me from this chair into that chair, and from this chair to this room, and they're talking to me. And it's almost like you can tell that I'm trying to fight to get away from them, but I can't. And there's noise in the background. And from what I remember, the noise is more of these movies that they're playing, that they're telling me what happened in my life. And I know this dream sounds completely off the track. It sounds completely weird. I told you, my brain is fucked up. And then I wake up. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about my dream. And for the past couple of days, I come to the conclusion that I honestly truly believe there are some people who are legally and officially deceased that are being experimented on, resurrected as like some type of, I won't say army, I won't say militia, but some type of military division, apocalyptic, zombie-esque type of shit. Laugh all you want to. Laugh all you want to. But if a motherfucker has been dead, like dead, like they died dead, they dead ass dead. And you find a way to resurrect their body and give them enough brain function to respond, you basically have like fleshy robot, android type of people walking around. I don't know if that's going to be a hell of a movie. Knowing me, I'm probably going to write a script about it in the next couple of weeks. Or if it's one of those things where deep down inside we're all eventually going to become zombie-esque type of androided people. Because with the Neuralink microchip that they have already in the works that they're testing out on monkeys, that in the next 10 years or so, people are going to volunteer to have this Neuralink chip surgically installed into their brainstem, where everything is now going to be telepathically communicated. No more verbal. Telepathy is going to be the new communication. We've already got into the world a system to where they can now, with a 90-some-odd% accuracy, predict crime within 1,000 feet of a neighborhood, of a certain grid, to the date, to the time, to the type of crime. How is it too far-fetched that possibly they can use these links to regenerate deceased and corpses and use them as a robotic-esque type of way of life? Who's to say they're not going to do that with somebody who's alive? Again, I know this sounds far-fetched to a lot of people. I get it. But if you really pay attention, how far off are we from these things that are happening? If you really think. Now, it might sound chaotic in, August 22nd, 2022. But how off is it going to sound come September of 2032? I think that's kind of where we're headed. I think human beings were pretty much going to be extinct in the fashion of necessity. And I honestly feel that it's going to be going more to a way-ass different world. Listen. Call me what you want to. But Alex Jones is 50% right half the time. The other time, he's 100% to fuck off. So, just get it. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast today. It's kind of a shorter episode. Follow us on social media. The E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R on Twitter, Instagram. The GNS Inc. on YouTube. Download the Spreaker app. Create an account, profile. Chat with us. We'll be back on Wednesday, 3:30. Y'all be good.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
This is Sherelle, creator of the Business Lounge for Successful Entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by D.Cal.